I'm hanging out with Oliver Dickson. I genuinely don't know how to introduce you because, like, who do I introduce you as? What do you do in life? Like, you know a lot of people.
Introduce me as your friend.
Okay, Oliver, my friend.
Am I not your friend?
Oliver, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. How have the past few weeks been? I haven't seen you.
Horrible.
Forever. Why? What's up?
Coronavirus is what's up. That's what's up. Coronavirus is what's going on, and it's been horrible. I work in the gig economy,
I see.
right? So,
Yeah.
and the gig economy took the hardest knock over the last month, and even before then, there was, we were sort of just starting the year.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, like my first gig this year was the budget speech in the State of the Nation, which was last month.
Okay.
And just as I got back from Cape Town, South Africa got its first coronavirus case. Remember that happened at the start of of March.
Yeah.
So
when
we
the Italians
yeah.
came back,
Yeah, so at the start of March we've been in this situation.
Yeah.
And since then events after events after events have been cancelled. And I am on the suffering end of that. So that's why the last couple of weeks haven't been okay.
Yeah.
But I kind of knew we would get here. I was broadcasting radio in December, right?
So you were very much aware of what's going on.
I
in
was
other
very,
countries
very
that
much.
would
Not other
affect-
countries, just China.
Okay.
At the time
okay.
it was. In China, they declared a state of emergency in Wuhan province in December. Like in January. The whole province went under lockdown. So remember, the Chinese New Year happens in January.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember.
It doesn't happen the same time as ours.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a big deal when the Chinese New Year got extended, because during the Chinese New Year, the Chinese markets didn't trade.
Yeah.
Right, and so the Chinese New Year celebrations got extended and postponed and extended and postponed because the people couldn't celebrate in China because of the coronavirus. So in the news, I was covering that, and I remember I was on radio that entire week with one of my colleagues at Prime Media, Arabile Komere. He's like a business news reporter.
Yeah.
And we spoke about this almost every day, and on air, and we were talking about the impacts the markets were taking. So the financial impacts, I saw that in January already.
Financial impacts on which market?
On the global markets.
Okay.
So if China sneezes, the world catches a flu, as
That's
we now
true.
quite literally know about that. But we saw, for instance, the rand started suffering. The dollar wasn't doing too well. The RMB, the Chinese RMB wasn't doing too well.
Yeah.
So I saw all of those things, the signs early on. And coronavirus wasn't a conversation just yet in South Africa. We didn't think it would get here. And I remember in January it started spreading to South Korea. And it started
Patient
spreading.
31.
Long before Patient 31. Like, South Korea was cool up until that idiot went to a church thing, right? It was like a revival or some shit like that,
Yeah.
right? South Korea had everything under control until that idiot decided to go to church. And then that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
So South Korea had already had it under control, but South Korea is a neighboring country to China. So the movement between South Korea and China is like, it's on the scale of the movement between South Africa and Zimbabwe, if not higher, So obviously it was gonna spread into South Korea very quickly.
Yeah.
And so it has. And then South Korea blew up, and then they handled it really quick fast. So we only started panicking in February, kind of, but not even, because we haven't had a single case. And then the first week of March, we had our first case. And then
But I
shit
think
became
also
bad.
with the first case and at the time when it was reported, I think there was some extent of negligence. And this is my
Wow,
opinion.
this coffee is horrible. Shit.
Hectic. My opinion is that there was some form of negligence with the people from Italy that were allowed in the country, because at that point, and I kept saying this on my personal Twitter account, we were very much aware of the fact that there was this epidemic or pandemic or whatever
Yeah.
that is going on in other countries, and we are not precluded from experiencing it, you know what I mean? So I think at the time when that person was let in, the country was very much aware, and there was just like that one person at the airport who didn't do their job, you know. And as some people have come to see,
Not really. I mean, the people at the airport were doing their jobs, right? This guy was asymptomatic.
reckon?
Yeah, this guy was asymptomatic,
Okay.
which means that he showed absolutely no signs of it. And remember how airports test for these things, how they quarantine essentially,
Yeah.
is they just check your temperature. That's it. That's the best they
true.
can do.
That's
And if
true.
you're not showing any symptoms, if you aren't even sick yet, your temperature is not going to reflect that, right? So the airport people weren't. I think what you said in the first instance, I think that's where we dropped the ball. The fact that we knew that South Korea, China, and Italy, and at the time as well, Iran, because
Iran?
yeah, Iran,
Serious?
yeah, because even at the time, before we even had our first patients, Iran's deputy minister of health already had coronavirus. Like Iran
Oh
was.
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think
Iran
you
was
shared
the-
something on it on your socials.
Yeah, Iran was the fourth biggest hit country, and they overnight became the second biggest hit country, because so we knew those four countries
Yeah.
were hard hit, right?
Yeah.
We knew about Italy, we knew about China, we knew about South Korea, we knew about Iran. I think at the time we should have already had the travel ban
I agree.
on
I
Italy and
agree.
all of that. The question though is, was it going to be effective? And I think not, because here's what happened: the people who came here weren't tourists coming to tour here. They were
Africans.
South Africans coming home,
Yeah.
you know. So I think if we had identified Italy as a high risk country, those people would have immediately gone into quarantine. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get
And
what you're saying.
and I think that's but I think we are being slightly unfair to pin every case we have on what happened with the Italian tour group, because I don't think, because there were other people who came here from Portugal, from Germany, from
That's true.
you know, so
That's
there were other
true.
tourists.
I agree with your sentiments in that regard.
What are we on now? What, 709 cases?
9, yeah.
Right,
It's
and
just the 25th of March.
and it's just the 25th of March.
Yeah.
It's like in the morning. It's 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and we're sitting on 709 cases. Yesterday we had 502 cases.
But I mean, it goes back to what you were saying about patient zero, who wasn't showing any symptoms and who thought, I'm okay, my temperature's fine, let me go and integrate with the world. I think that's how it happened. I just think of the 500 and whatever people, one of them probably didn't know, because
Yeah, because there were 10 of them,
that's,
right?
and that's also just reported cases. How
Yeah.
many people are roaming around unreported, not feeling any signs of sickness, not feeling feverish or whatever, you know, their temperatures are okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, if we're being real about this, right? It takes 7 days. About, this is what I heard last time.
Yeah.
It takes about 7 days to start showing any symptoms. So if you contract it today,
I'm
think
not
about
gonna
for the next 7 days.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? It takes on average about 7 days. So for the next 7 days, you're going to interact, spread this thing as fuck.
And
And
you're
then
gonna think you're gonna think that you are taking the necessary precautions, because you can contract it in any way. I mean, I saw a video where a lady was wearing gloves, and she was wearing gloves, and I mean, according to her, she took all the precautions, but at one point she scratched her face, and I don't think she realized at that point that I'm doing this and I'm not supposed to do
Yeah,
this.
right.
So-
Because I mean, scratching your face is ordinarily such an innocuous thing.
Yeah.
You just do it all the time. I do it
Yeah.
all the time. Look, the reality is, taking all the precautions doesn't mean you're not going to get it. It just lowers your chances of getting it, right? You could be the cleanest, healthiest, most careful and cautious
Germaphobe.
person, and you can still catch this thing,
Shit.
right? But I think, and if we're going to be real about it, the vast majority of it has nothing to worry about.
Why do you say that?
Think about it, like,
And
About-
who's the vast majority? Which demographic does this vast majority cover in while you're answering the first question?
so the vast majority of people. So think about it like this: if you're 25, you're fairly healthy, you'll get coronavirus, and 2 weeks you'll be fine. Right? In 2
Okay.
weeks, just stay home, you'll be fine.
It's the elderly and frail.
It's the elderly and frail, but also people who are immunodeficient. They are the people you have to worry about. Like in South Africa, we have a lot of immunodeficient people. So think about every person who has TB in this country, which, by the way, the numbers are quite high. Think about every person who we have.
HIV.
We have 8 million people who have HIV in this country, right? 500,000 of them are adults in Johannesburg. So those are the people that we should be worried about the most, and of course, elderly people and kids. So if you're a generally healthy person, you're older than say 12 years old, and you've drank all your Scotch emulsion, and you're younger than 60 years old, you're good. You've got nothing to worry about. Okay, you've got little to worry about. And if you don't already have a compromised immune system, right, you'll be okay. But and I think that's the vast majority of us. We're a country of 60 million people.
But now the problem in that, for me anyway, is that you might be okay, but you are a carrier.
Yes, and you could infect other people.
Yeah.
Right, and this is why it's important to just stay home, stay the fuck home, don't go anywhere, because you might be okay. But what if you come into contact with someone who is immunodeficient?
Yeah.
Then you're gonna literally putting their lives at risk, quite literally.
We are going into a lockdown this coming Friday, literally in a day, and I mean, it's all good and well for some people who are going to be like, yo, at least we get time to rest. And obviously I'm going to touch on the other socio-economic issues that the lockdown is going to have. Maybe I should start with the socio-economic issues, and then we'll just move into the issues that the virus is going to present for the world at large going into the future. Socio-economically, a lot of people are worried about the fact that it might not take 21 days. The lockdown might not actually be 21 days, and it might be a month. A lot of people are saying that eventually there's going to be lootings of shops when people who live hand to mouth are unable to make ends meet, and they are unable to, for example, buy bread. Those are the people that are going to start looting shops. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, we're a poor country, right? And where crisis hits, it exposes the true fractures of poverty. I think all along we've been able to mask it sufficiently and efficiently. But think about it like this. I think the looting ideas perhaps will happen because of opportunistic crime, not because people truly want to loot.
Yeah.
So if we think about it, if we looked at our history of looting, it is Nyaupe boys who see a moment of chaos and then they realize, oh, it's a moment of chaos, here's my opportunity to loot. So a lot of the looting we see happening here are opportunistic crime, and those criminals would want to loot anyway. So I don't think the looting we'll see will be of a special kind. No, I don't. But think about it, I think, to be quite honest, so we have 18 million South Africans who are on social welfare, right? 18 million people who will still receive their social welfare grants.
Yeah.
Those people will, to some extent, live like they've been living all along. They'll still be able to buy bread. And the fact that you save and Pick n Pay and Spar will still be open means that they'll still be able to go and buy bread, right?
True.
So it's not as though they're in a different situation. The people who will be knocked the hardest are the people who are getting retrenched, and the people who are in jobs where it is a pay-as-you-go type of situation,
Yeah.
right? Pay-as-you-work. So if you don't work, you don't get paid, and that sort of thing. And that's where perhaps some of the interventions by government are important. They're gonna go a long way, but they're not gonna go long enough away. So some of like the interventions government has put in place is government is trying to get a little bit more. So we're in a time of crisis. The economy is now at a standstill. So any response to that would be a response of stimulus. So there isn't an increased amount of money in the economy, but where that money is determines the impact of it. So even the most brightest of economists are always telling us that money in the hands of people is better off than money in the hands of government, right? So government is trying to release as much of the money it has in its hands to get it into the hands of people and businesses. For instance, if you earn 6,500 rand or less, the government is trying to get 500 rand more into your hands through some sort of tax rebate.
Yes,
right. So
I
SARS is
remember
going
that
to
from
give.
the speech,
Now the struggle is you kind of already have to have a job to get that 500 rand, and the people who don't have jobs perhaps need it most, and they're not going to get it. There'll always be hiccups in the system, but at least there's more money going into the hands of people. So now, but think about it like this: if you earn 6.5K, which is like 70% of our working class anyway, right? So if you earn 6.5K, you're spending money on petrol or transport, right? And you're spending money on, I think, so I read once that middle class South Africans spend about 40% of their salaries on average on transportation. And this is because of and this is because, of course, how the spatial planning of this country is. Apartheid spatial planning still impacts the economy. So poorer people spend longer times to travel to work and therefore spend more money on traveling to work, right? It's crazy that the average worker or the lowest earning worker of a company spends more money getting to work than the CEO of the company. Quite literally. The CEO lives 15 minutes away, right? True. If you live 15 minutes from your job and you drove 15 minutes to your job and back, you're spending far less money than the person who has to get on 3 taxis. Do you get it? So it's crazy.
And it's just like the closer you live to work, I mean, obviously you're gonna get lazy and you're gonna start getting to work late because you've got the advantage that you live closer to work. But it's like energy saved. At some point it goes from you're saving resources to get to work to saving energy. So for me personally, I think if I lived closer to work, I'd be less tired.
You'd be less tired.
And I'd be more productive.
More productive and just happier.
True.
Like Joburg traffic is like the number one thing for making me unhappy, to be honest. But the point I'm making is this. So you earn 6,000 rand. Let's assume you spend 2,000 rand a month on getting yourself to work and getting your kids to school, because you also have to pay transport money for the kids. Let's say you spend 2,000 rand. For the next 21 days, you won't be spending that kind of money. So you have slightly more disposable income.
True.
And on top of that, government is getting 500 rand back into your hands. So I think, firstly, the working class will be slightly better cushioned. The unemployed people are who I'm worried about. Then government is trying. Small businesses obviously will be the hardest hit, and small businesses are the biggest employer in the economy, right? So, and a lot of people are like, what do you classify as a small business? Small to medium enterprise. The definition is quite clear. If you make less than 50 million a year, you're a small to medium enterprise. So a number of things are happening there. Small businesses are being bailed out. But we must be clear. We must be clear. I mean, the money available is not enough, but we must be clear what is bailout, who exactly is being bailed out. I've been seeing a lot of concerns about that the small businesses that are being bailed out are not the most vulnerable people, because Bomama who sell fruit and veg are not being bailed out. They're part of the informal sector. And if you listen to the president's speech or even read it, you realize that ways are being figured out for them to be bailed out. Now, I got some ideas about how I think it might happen. I could be wrong. I'm not in government. I don't speak to these people. So I don't exactly know what the models are. And we know the models are still being developed at the moment. But there will be an effort to get money to hawkers in the informal sector.
Even if it means personally going to the
It's going to be tough, right? Because a lot of these people don't have bank accounts. They don't have financial statements.
Food to mouth,
hand to mouth. Do you get what I'm saying? So how do you get money to them? And I think these people have a close relationship with their cities. So I think the cities will play a big role. Contrary to what people believe, that the hawkers in Johannesburg don't just rock up and start selling. A lot of them have to go to Metro to get a permit. You have to get an informal trader's permit, right? A lot of them have permits. I know that to be the case here in Joburg. I know it to be the case in Cape Town. I don't know about other cities, right? It might not be as good in other cities. But in Joburg, the vast majority of them have permits. So that means Metro Police has their contact details. It means that economic development or the city of Johannesburg has their contact details, knows how to get in touch with them, knows how to track them. So cities are going to play a big role in terms of being an intermediary to get the money to them. So how much money is available? At the moment, we're looking at 2.715 billion, and if you add the 50 million that I heard this morning, Old Mutual contributed, and if you add an additional 150 million which Natim Tetwa had just made available for the arts, for workers in the arts.
Are you serious?
Yeah, just like a few hours ago.
Wow, okay. Because I also wanted to ask about that. Like you said at the beginning of our chat, that people in the arts industry or in the creative space are going to be the most hard hit.
Yeah.
I'm interested in finding out how that's going to happen. How you?
It's not a lot of money. It's
It's
100.
not a lot, but
So here's what they're doing. It's 150 million for the arts. What he has committed to is to paying artists who have been booked and their bookings have been cancelled as a result of this.
Okay.
But it must be artists that were booked for events sponsored by government or the department, right? And if we're going to be honest, it's a lot of artists. For instance, Makufe is a state-sponsored event, right? Think about all the artists there.
Is it Jazz Festival?
Jazz Fest is also in part sponsored by the government, right? So think about that. So there are most events that happen on a large scale can't happen without government sponsorship. So typically government sponsors for that, right? But if you think about an event such as Castle Light Unlocked, which has been postponed, that's not sponsored by government. That's completely private. So maybe Castle has to think about at least paying the local artists. Do you get what I'm saying? The local artist or the supporting act. Because if you're being honest,
something else.
Cardi B already received the deposit.
That's true.
To confirm the booking, they had to pay a deposit. Cardi B already has a deposit,
And
so
I mean,
she's not suffering.
I think you're well versed in a lot of things, but I think you might know a clause called a vis major clause.
What's that?
Oliver, for someone who's
I don't know what that is.
in a lot of
I'm
things,
not a lawyer.
I am
You're a lawyer.
disappointed. So this major clause is usually a clause that's in a contract that stipulates that in the event of natural disaster, where both parties are unable to perform their obligations in terms of a contract, neither parties will be held liable for their inability to perform. So in Cardi B's instance, I'm guessing if the attorney who drafted the contract between Cardi and Castle Light has some sort of sense, he or she would have put this clause in the agreement, which in this case, to put it to make sense of it realistically, Cardi will then no longer be held liable for her inability to come and perform in South Africa.
No,
so
certainly.
Castle Lights won't be able to say, yeah, but okay.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that
she, on the other hand, won't be able to hold
us liable. Castle
yeah.
Light liable.
So she won't be able to hold Castle Light liable because of
Yeah.
the intervening impossibility. So
Yeah, true, but Cardi has already been paid.
you think so?
Deposit.
Well,
There's
yeah.
absolutely no way you can book and confirm a booking with an act as big as Cardi B without a deposit. In fact, they had to pay the deposit just to use her name.
Hectic.
Do you get what I'm saying? So the deposit has been paid. Don't you remember in 2000 and maybe 2011, 12?
I was young, Oliver.
I was young too. Maybe 2011, 12. The ANC Youth, no, sorry, not the ANC Youth League. The city of Tshwane had this event and they booked Nicki Minaj for it. She was going to be the headline
I
act.
can't remember this.
Yeah,
Really?
it was going to be a festival. Yeah, I forgot what it was called, man. And arrangements didn't go accordingly.
Really?
Yeah, arrangements didn't happen. Because of corruption. It was a city-led thing, and of course we know where government is involved, corruption happens.
Yeah.
But at the time the event was called off, Nicki Minaj had already been paid more than 2 million rand.
Okay.
They paid her $200,000. They paid her $200,000. In fact, and then what happened was, the ANC Youth League then protested. They protested against Nicki Minaj.
What?
Yeah,
Get
they
outta
said
here.
Nicki Minaj must return the money. And Nick's people just wrote a letter like, what the fuck? Yeah, so these things happen. But anyway, so we're looking at a total of 2.75 billion rand. We know that government seeded 150 million. We know into this thing called the Solidarity Fund. We know there's a grant available of 500 million rand for the Department of Small Business. We know that Department of Tourism has a grant of 200 million. And we know that the Rupert and Oppenheimer family respectively each donated what, $1 billion each?
$1 billion each, correct.
Right, and money still flowing in. I know Old Mutual this morning announced 50 million. So if the private sector comes to play, that fund may become much more than it currently is.
Where is all this money going? And I mean, I know you've said that the money is going to be trickled down into small businesses, but say small businesses have been catered to. Where does the remainder of the money go?
I don't think there will be a remainder of the money.
reckon
There'll always be a shortage. So there won't be a surplus. Trust me on this, there will not be a surplus. So small businesses will have to apply, put in an application. I know at least with the Department of Small Business Development, you put in an application, and in your application, if your application is reviewed and approved, you will receive grant funding. And I know the Department of Small Business capped it at 500,000 rand per small business, so that's
What?
500,000. Yeah,
No
right.
ways,
Yeah,
Oliver.
I'm dead serious. It was all in the speech, bro.
I
It was
mean,
all
I
in
read
the-
the
yeah.
speech.
Well, and
but
the
like,
supporting document, you would have had to read that.
You
Yeah.
were breaking it down.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
breaking it all
So,
the way down.
and then tourism has 200 million only for businesses affected in the tourism space, affected by
So,
the
like,
travel bans.
Labels, backpackers.
Levels backpackers. I don't know who's Levels, but shout out to
You're disappointed.
or the
Sorry,
guy in Vilagazi Street who does the bicycle thing.
That's Lebu.
Oh, that's Lebu.
You know what?
Shout out to Lebu. Yeah, so he could apply to the Department of Tourism and they'll give him money. And this is because tourism depends on people coming in and out of the country, right? So Europe is a big market, China's a massive market, America's a massive market, and even the African market is massive. And all of those countries now have been travel banned. So there's money to relieve them. It's never going to be enough. There will always be a shortage, but it's something.
Do you think economically we're ever going to recover? Like,
No.
obviously not get to the point where we were pre all the sanctions, the travel bans and whatever, but are we somewhat going to recover as a stable country? Because we're also going into a recession.
I spoke to an economist yesterday, and I asked a question simply, just how long do you think it will take us to recover? We were in a global recession in 2008. You remember that, right? The economic meltdown, the global economic meltdown. It took South Africa about 7-8 years to recover from that. Yeah, our economy was growing at 6%. Bruh, under Thabo Mbeki's presidency, we were growing.
I was too young to remember that.
You and I are practically the same age, dog. I was young too.
Oliver,
We are.
It's neither here nor there. So what does that mean for?
So we
the
were growing.
layperson?
I mean, we were growing at 6%, right? I think now we're growing at like. If you listen to Tito Mboweni in February, he said his projected growth for this year was projected downward to 0.9%.
Are you serious?
That's not even 1%,
You-
right? Dude, and
Damn,
we are currently in a recession. This is without coronavirus. We are currently in a recession. And then another guy, Colin Coleman, homie of mine, he used to be he's the former CEO of Goldman Sachs in Africa, and he lectures African markets at Yale University. He projected our economy is going to contract by 2.5%.
I hear
Not by 2.5%. Our economy is going to contract downwards to 2.5%. So that's a contraction of about 3+%. So to put it in perspective, in America, Congress has just unleashed a $2 trillion budget. In rands, at 18 rand to the dollar, we're looking at what? 36 trillion rand. That's how much America has unlocked as a stimulus package for their economy. And we only have what? $150 million? Right? Think about the scale, the difference in scale.
Vast.
America they said we're in a crisis. and we're going to have an unemployment rise up to 30% as a result of the crisis. That's what they're predicting, right?
Okay.
And to fix that, they said, to fix 30% unemployment in their country, they need a $2 trillion budget. Now, our unemployment, if we're being honest about it, is sitting at 40%.
Okay. That's how we wrap up the first part of this conversation regarding the coronavirus and what the future holds for you. So do stay tuned for the second part of this conversation.